topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
What's working on purpose anyway? Each week, we ponder the answer to this question. People ache for meaning and purpose at work, to contribute their talents passionately and know their lives really matter. They crave being part of an organization that inspires them and helps them grow into realizing their highest potential. Business can be such a force for good in the world, elevating humanity. In our program, we provide guidance and inspiration to help usher in this world we all want, working on purpose. Now, here's your host, Dr. Elise Cortez.
Welcome back to the Working on Purpose program, which has been brought to you with passion and pride since February of 2015. Thanks for tuning in again this week. Great to have you. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. If we have not met before and you don't know me, I'm an organizational psychologist and logotherapist, speaker, and author. My team and I at Gusto Now help companies enliven and fortify their operations by building a dynamic, high-performance culture and inspirational leadership activated by meaning and purpose. You can learn more about us and how we can work together at gusto-now.com or my personal site, elisecortez.com. Getting into today's program, we have with us today Jennifer Pestikas, an executive with over 20 years of experience in the financial services industry. She is currently the Senior Vice President of Business Development of a Chicagoland financial institution. In addition to her corporate work, Jen is now leveraging her experience with her personal company, Brave Women at Work. At Brave Women at Work, she offers career and leadership coaching for women. She helps her clients better identify their strengths, what they want, what is holding them back, and how to remove those barriers so they can take better hold and be braver in action in their careers. She is also part of the team bringing a brand new conference for women to the fore called Thrive in 25, which we'll be talking about today. It takes place in June of 2025. She joins us today from Chicagoland. Jennifer, welcome back to Working on Purpose.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm such a fan, as you know.
Thank you.
I'm very happy to have you back. A big fan of who you are and what you're doing in the world. Because our listeners and viewers maybe don't know you as well as I do, let's talk a bit about your background and how it is that you found your way first into financial services that you've been doing for a good 20 years now.
Yes, so it's an interesting journey, and I hope it inspires people because I didn't know that I wanted to be in banking or financial services. I actually was a double foreign language major in college, so thought I was going to be a college professor. And then lived overseas for about a year and realized that I wanted to have kind of like a bigger life experience rather than just going into one particular subject. I studied literature, I studied poems, I studied all that kind of stuff in college and was like, no, I want a bigger like scope. And so I ended up in business and, in banking and did well there. So yeah, that's how it came to be.
I understand that whole idea of getting that kind of exposure. And you and I, of course, share our love of languages. I, too, love languages, especially the Romance languages. But why is the work in financial services important to you? Why not architecture? Why not, I don't know, marketing? I guess you do that as well. You do that as well.
I do that. Yeah. So I do the marketing, but why financial services? So this one does hit a little bit closer to home in that my father actually passed away from kidney cancer that moved to the bone when I was 18 years old. And so I saw my family struggle financially. We were solid middle class and my parents both worked two jobs. Even my dad worked two jobs up until he got very ill. So he was diagnosed with cancer when I was 12 and then he made it 6 years and quite the hero in his fight against cancer. And then we didn't have enough life insurance for him. And so my mom had to kind of like bootstrap and do two jobs, even towards the end of her career when she was in her early 60s. And so I wanted to make sure that I had enough financial knowledge as a woman that was entering the world and just to like spread that knowledge to other people. And so that's why being in the banking and the financial services sphere is important to me.
So important to be able to leverage those life experiences, right? That's so incredible. I hear a lot of stories like that about what somebody has personally gone through that's helped shape their path forward. So no surprise. I don't think I remember that part of your journey. So thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
I lost my dad and mom much later in life, so I really appreciate that happened for you early for yourself.
Yep.
It's a different road.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then on top of all that, as if you aren't busy enough, my friend, you also are doing work with her C-suite and, of course, Brave Women at Work. Tell us a little bit about each of those things, those endeavors.
So her C-suite, the founder and the CEO is Natalie Benamou, and Natalie has been a partner for me with the last three plus years, and I've done coaching with her community, and so that's why it is on my LinkedIn profile, and done speaking and things like that. So we've loved partnering together, and so that's how I help her is through that. And then we've also done some side projects together, website for entrepreneurs, and we're also going to be working together, or are working together, on the Thrive in 2025 conference. And I do have to give her a shout out, because when I started my podcast, and I know that you obviously have deep roots in this area, she introduced me to so many amazing guests. And so she's a wonderful connector. And I just wanted to thank her again, because so many people have asked when I started the podcast, they're like, how are you going to get guests? I'm like, I don't know. It's just going to happen. And so it did.
I know Natalie. She's been on the podcast as well. Of course, I'm happy to be partnering and collaborating with her as well for the conference. So yes, also a shout out for her from me as well. But speaking of that, we'll get to more of the conference in just a second. But let's first peel back the idea of why you believe in empowering and developing women.
Well, so I started, like I said, the banking sphere, but I really started my roots in investment services. And if anyone has roots on the investment services side, you know that it's a predominantly male industry. And so and I'm throwing out, rough statistics here, but, for every, at least when I started, for every 10 advisors, it would be like 1 to 2 successful female advisors. And it was a real boys club, Dr. Elise. I'm not going to pull any punches here. And it was really hard to see a path forward on how I could advance. And then moving through my career, and this is public knowledge. It's in some of the Brave Women at Work women's anthologies that I've written, especially the second one. I wrote a chapter called Imposter. I've struggled in this area. I struggled admittedly and humbly in this area where I was told that I wasn't leadership material, or that I wasn't considered as a leader. I was the head down, work hard type of gal, and was hoping and praying and wishing that people would see you use the word shine and what I could bring to the table. And I didn't until I had to figure out how to do this on my own. And so I feel very passionate about helping other women do the same.
I remember that now that you bring that up about your history. Thank you again for sharing that. I think so many women can relate to that, of feeling like, well, the imposter syndrome, but also the idea that the mistaken notion that if I just put my head down and do good work, then I'll be recognized and promoted and my career will be just great. And it's just not true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I coach several women as well, too, men for that matter as well, but I coach both. But particularly with women, what I see is that they don't know what they don't know, and they haven't learned to really ask for help. And so even just this morning, I had a great conversation with a woman that I've been coaching for just about 1.5 years, and she's making amazing strides. She's learning and has been putting forth the notion of being much more proactive about how she asks for opportunities for advancement. And when she is given feedback about, whether or not she gets to move forward, she's having very direct but respectful conversations about, why wasn't I chosen? What's missing here?
Mm-hmm.
And just really, and she's really stewarding her journey on compensation, and really managing that path, not just accepting what has been given, but managing that path. And I know these are all some of the things we'll be talking about, in our conference here in next June. But I want to presence those things because I think so many women who might be listening are not even present to the need to have some help, outside advice, to be able to navigate those really important topics.
Agreed. Absolutely.
So now, let's talk about Thrive in 25, the brand new conference for women. I am delighted to get to serve as the MC for that conference. And I just know we have so many special things. Getting to meet the speakers has been phenomenal, Jennifer. Looking at some of the topics we'll be serving up, phenomenal. But let's first talk about, where did it come from? What was it? What was the impetus for this? And how was it actually birthed?
Yeah. So another interesting story. So as part of it, and again, through her C-suite and Natalie giving her credit where credit is due, she's a great connector. And that's what she does is she's building women's networks, opportunity for women to grow and shine and, be on the move as leaders. She has that program as well. So she introduced me to Hope Mueller, who you've had on the show as well. And Hope is a pharmaceutical executive and just bottom line, a real powerhouse. So we have partnered together through her company's Hunter Street Press and Climb conferences. And so I have the coaching arm and I have the Brave Woman at Work brand. And then, we've done a lot of amazing work together. And so the moral of the story is, Dr. Elise, I have to be really careful what I tell Hope because Hope is a big manifester. And so I came up with Thrive in 2025. I told Hope specifically, I'm like, hey, I think we need to do a women's leadership conference. We've done retreats on a small scale. Are you willing to give it a shot to do a women's leadership event at a larger scale? And she's like, yeah, let's do this. And so we put it on the list for 2025 thinking, and I thought, well, is that ever really going to happen? Well, here we are. You're our MC. We have like 18 speakers, I believe, of just amazing background. And we're going to do this thing.
It is amazing. I don't know if we talked about this or not before, Jennifer, but I think it was back in 2018. I too wanted to put on a conference, really around the world of work. But what I really discovered very quickly is you can't do that alone. You need a full team to help you make that happen. And I'm very grateful to be part of that team. I know Hope. I first met her years ago. I was moderating a panel that she was on, and immediately recognized her greatness. Had her on my podcast talking about her book, Hopi, which was how I really got to know her. She is a powerhouse. She does know how to make things happen. So I love the idea that you were the idea person on this, and she was part of the crew to help bring it forth to action. I'll never forget when I got the email saying, hey, Elise, we're putting together this conference for women. Would love to talk to you about you emceeing it. Well, I immediately was like, I'm in. Let's talk about this. Of course.
Yes, we're so excited to have you.
What I love about that is getting to MC means that I get to know all of the presenters. I get to that means I need to know them to be able to present them and introduce them. I really will get to understand much more fully and deeply all of the topics that we'll get to be introducing for the women. And I love the idea that it's in, as you say, Chicagoland. I never had heard about Chicago being described as Chicagoland before this conference. But I do think it's really, one, it's the middle of the country for many, for all intents and purposes. But two, there's something about the energy of Chicago that seems to be pretty compelling to me.
Oh, good. I'm glad. So you might be wondering, like, why Chicagoland, right? So, I'm from Chicago. So I said to Hope, we had tossed around her area, which is the Las Vegas area, which many conferences are at. So who knows? It might flip in different parts of the country, or maybe we'll have multiple. Hope don't get too many ideas if you're listening to this. But I told her, I'm like, I really feel like this needs to be in my neck of the woods, right? Like, I feel like it needs to be here. So we have something more central for speakers and attendees to go for. And we picked Chicagoland versus downtown Chicago is because we wanted people flying in, because most people will fly into O'Hare International Airport. So we literally, Dr. Elise, we're like really close to the airport. So we wanted people to have that accessibility and that flexibility, because we know getting to downtown Chicago, if you've had that experience, it can be quite the crapshoot on how long it's going to take you to get there. So we wanted it to be accessible. We wanted it to be affordable and attainable for people. So that's why we picked that location.
I appreciate that. And while we're on the subject of geography and location, before we talk about some of the speakers, I also know that you chose the hotel venue very, very carefully. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we did also choose a hotel that was right by, pretty close to the airport, 15 minutes away from the airport. We chose something that is not I would say not necessarily the norm, because we didn't want everyone to have like shiny object syndrome where they're like, oh, I'm going to go shopping, or I'm going to go to the movies, or, oh, we wanted people to be really immersed and really in the experience at the hotel. And the hotel's got a really cool, I Hope has stayed there. I have done many tours. It has a really cool vibe. And so I'm not going to say any more about the hotel. I think you just have to experience it for yourself.
I so appreciate that. I'm very much allured by the whole experience, and I know our prospective women joining us will be as well. Let's take our first break. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. We're on the air with Jennifer Pestikas. She's an executive with over 20 years of experience in the financial services industry, and who is helping bring to the fore the brand new conference for women called Thrive in 25. We've been talking a bit about where it came from and her own background of what she's contributing. After the break, we're going to get into a few of the speakers and just some of the topics we'll be covering. We'll be right back.
Dr. Elise Cortez is a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose, an inspirational speaker and author. She helps companies visioneer for greater purpose among stakeholders and develop purpose-inspired leadership and meaning-infused cultures that elevate fulfillment, performance, and commitment within the workforce. To learn more or to invite Elise to speak to your organization, please visit her at elisecortez.com. Let's talk about how to get your employees working on purpose. This is Working on Purpose with Dr. Elise Cortez. To reach our program today or to open a conversation with Elise, send an email to Elise, A-L-I-S-E, at elisecortez.com. Now, back to Working on Purpose.
Thanks for staying with us and welcome back to Working on Purpose. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. As I'm dedicated to helping create a world where people realize their potential at work, are led by inspirational leaders that help them find and contribute their greatness, and we do business that betters the world, I continue to research and write my books. So the last one came out in March of 2023. It's called The Great Revitalization: How Activating Meaning and Purpose Can Radically Enliven Your Business. I wrote it to help leaders understand just the nature of today's workforce, which is very discerning. What do they want and need to stay with you? And then I offered 22 best practices to help you create a culture to provide that for them. You can learn more about my books on Amazon or my personal site, elisecortez.com. If you are just now joining me, my guest is Jennifer Pestikas, who, in addition to her long career in the financial services industry, also offers career and leadership coaching for women through her personal company, Brave Women at Work. So before the break, we were talking a bit about just kind of the location and the thought behind the Thrive in 25 conference. Let's talk a bit about just some of the speakers. Mm-hmm. Can you share just maybe introduce a couple of them that really stand out for you?
Oh, it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough. So I've got the site up here as I'm talking. So I would say a couple that come to mind are Bobby Carlton. So Bobby is a TEDx speaker. She is she's a speaking maven, and she's going to talk about public speaking and getting that kind of as part of your repertoire, because so many of us, we sit behind the desk, we might be executives, but we're not presenting, or we don't have that as part of our offering. So she's got a presentation on public speaking, and then one, because this is her personality, no excuses, how to get yourself on stage. So I'm really excited about learning what she has to share about getting in front of others and honing speaking as part of what you do.
Okay. Before you go on, let me just chime into that, because this is so important, right? In your coaching and my coaching, it is so important to be able to, one, own your brand. And then two, related to the work that I'm doing, is the more that you're comfortable speaking on stage, the more effective you're going to be as an inspirational leader. Being able to cast a vision that people want to be part of, can step into, is so important. So I'm glad you started with that one, because I think it's so important. And many people, as you know, are frightened silly of speaking in public. They are more afraid. Mm-hmm. The statistic is people are more afraid to speak in public than they are to die.
Wow.
Did you not know that? No, that's true. That is a solid statistic.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's get them a little less afraid.
Yeah, shall we then?
Let's do that. So just a couple more, and I'm picking these out on purpose. So one of the reasons when Hope and I were talking about this conference, we're like, how do we make this different? You know, we say leadership conference, and we talked about our experiences with going to leadership conferences. And we wanted to look at the whole woman. And by whole woman, I'm saying the whole person. So we want to look at their mindset. We wanted to look at their health and well-being. We wanted to look at, of course, the leadership chops, like how do we give them the education and then the accountability support. So we thought that was unique because we've never been to a conference like that before that has all of those components. So another two speakers I just want to call out. The first one is more on that wellness piece, and the next one will be also on the wellness, is Dr. Susan Lavelle. And she works on her two presentations are, the first one is From Busy to Balanced, 3 Secrets to Harmonize Your Life and Work. So she's into hormones and from that busy to balance piece. And her second one is The Executive Edge, Harnessing Hormones. This is where hormones comes in, and habits for peak performance. And I don't know about you, but, and I don't know if I shared on the show last time, but I've gone through burnout myself. And as I'm entering those middle years, right, like we'll just throw out the word perimenopause, like hormones are becoming a lot more important to me. And I want to make sure that I'm taking care of myself and I am in peak performance so that I can give what I want at work. And I don't feel kind of hamstrung from a health condition perspective, because like we say, if we don't put our oxygen mask on first, who's going to do it for us?
I so appreciate that, Jennifer. I can't count the number of women that I've encountered over the years who are saying things like, I'm constantly exhausted, but I don't know why. Mm-hmm. I'm doing all these things, et cetera, et cetera. And oftentimes we might find that one, it is an overextension into too many activities. And sometimes, of course, they're just not resting enough. But very often there is the physical element to that, which might actually be the hormonal piece. So I really appreciate very much the holistic nature of what this conference is providing to women. We're not just talking about leadership. We're talking about the whole woman who is being that leader. And that's one of the major reasons that I said, yes, I will be happy to MC this conference.
Yes. And so the last one or two I just want to mention. So Jackie Satera, who owns her own business, JNC Innovations, she's doing actually a vision boarding exercise. So how cool is that we get to take something tangible away and, kind of tap into our creative flow. And then on a last one that I just want to highlight for a minute is Nicole Smith-LeVay, who is a somatic coach. And so she's going to teach us how to breathe, right? Because I don't know about you, but I've had situations where I get stressed and then I forget how to breathe. I'm a chest breather versus like a diaphragm breather. So she's going to actually help us with that. So I'm very excited about those and all of them.
I am too. And just to add in another piece that I think is really important, that I also think is critical for the whole being development, is I know we have some planned content around really embracing nature. And also into the space of really cultivating art as a space for passion and creativity. And of course, when I have a whole program that I'm doing on helping people to create fierce, bold goals for the new year. I bucket them across 9 different dimensions. And a couple of them, one is creativity and passion, also adventure and travel, et cetera. So just so important that it goes beyond just professional, financial, family, right? There's just so much more that we can really cultivate. So I'm so excited for us.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah. And that was Dr. Vasu is going to do the Artful Mind. And I'm really excited. She's bringing the scientific and the art together. So it's going to be a really cool presentation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, because I really feel like I've got the coveted role here, since I get to really partake of everything, right? Why choose when you could just cover it all? I think Hope really understands me well enough that when she reached out, she knew that I was the right fit for me, for sure. All right.
She said right away. She's like, "Oh, Dr. Elise, she's our MC. We got to get Dr. Elise."
I love that. It was so delightful. I'm so excited. So then, if we could, I just wanted to talk a little bit about, sort of the arrangement, some of the thinking behind, what it is that we are intentionally developing in this conference, and starting off with just really understanding one's personal attributes. Mm-hmm. Could you speak a little bit to what's behind that particular focus of the conference?
Yes. So that's about, those key pieces of self-knowledge, right? So that's why we're doing the vision boarding. We're going to be talking about values, like that key self-knowledge, because as a leader, we understand, me being 20 plus years, Hope being 20 to 25 plus years, like many of the women that are speaking have so many years. We actually I need to do the math to see what the collective years of leadership experience are. That would be powerful for me to share in the future. But we know that you have to know thyself, right, as a leader. So understanding your attributes, understanding your strengths, understanding what's important to you is why that is going to be a key component of the conference.
I really appreciate that. I am amazed, Jennifer, when I'm out doing work, either for my public workshops or for work that I do inside companies, I am amazed. Like, I was just actually taking a course last week on really listening well. And I would say the average age in there was, I don't know, early 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And I was amazed by how many people had these major ahas about themselves, about which we had taken the DISC assessment for that particular workshop. But anyway, the point that I'm making is that, what I always tell people is that you are going to spend the rest of your life really knowing yourself. There's that much to know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that we also have these pieces in here built in to help women to understand their personal attributes. So important.
Mm-hmm.
What motivates you, what distinguishes you, all those things. Then we go on to the next bucket, which is personal development and mindset. Tell us a bit about that one.
So you can know yourself, but you also need to know how to manage your mindset too. As a leader, I think it's absolutely critical, because people think, things will be better when I become a leader. Well, I'm here to report, being a realist as I am, you're going to have tough days, right? And so how do you manage that mindset so that your career trajectory is going in the way and the spaces and the places that you want it to go? And you can read so many books, you can read all the books, listen to all the podcasts, but at the end of the day, and you're going to hear this as a refrain, that you have to take that responsibility for your mindset. You can get those tools, but you actually have to use them. And so we want women to walk away with solid tools on how they can manage that mindset, because, your mindset has a direct ripple effect on your team and, in your leadership initiative. So managing the mindset is critical.
Yes. And to that end, what I find fascinating and precious about part of the work that I get to do is helping to reveal people's mindsets to them. We don't know. It's like
Right.
the water we swim in.
Right.
So you think about that. Does the salmon really realize that they're actually swimming in a body of water? Probably not. That's it's their environment. And so the careful and important work of revealing that mindset, and then we can decide to the extent to which, how is that actually working for us or against us? Mm-hmm. And then, of course, unlearning these mindsets is just as important as learning new, better ones, or ones that will serve us better, just as important.
Mm-hmm. And many of the people or the women that I work with, or that probably will attend, they might have like a sense of they're disenfranchised, or they're like, why can't I get ahead? Or there's a little frustration. But like you said, Dr. Elise, they may not know that part of it is their mindset. They may think, oh, well, you know what, I'll never get the promotion, or I'll never get the opportunity. And they don't know that in itself is stopping them.
Absolutely. Thank you. That was extremely well said. Perfect. Okay, the third element that I think is really critical is the supportive community that's part of this conference.
Mm-hmm. So Hope and I are so invested in building a community of women, whether it's through Thrive in 2025 or through Climb conferences or through Brave Women at Work. And if you talk to any of our former authors or anyone that we have done work with, so you can fact check this, Dr. Elise, it's like becomes like a family of women and kind of a community where we are not often one and done, where we're like, oh, that was great, and we'll just see you later. And we are actually physically building a community via the Her C-Suite platform currently. So we have all of the women join that community, and they can share kind of their struggles, their successes, their wins together. And that's really important for us. So if a woman is listening and does attend, know that you have a community behind you. It's not like a one and done conference experience.
Oh, this is so critical, because, when I'm working in organizations or with women one-on-one, there is, even if you're in an organization, especially the higher you go in your career, the more lonely it feels.
Mm-hmm.
I really talk to about these really, critical things in my life, or I don't know. I've just been promoted. I don't know how to do this job. I just got promoted. I don't know what's going on, but yet I know that I have to perform. So being able to connect with other people who have had similar experiences can give a different perspective about what's going on, and can help encourage and empower and motivate her. It's just so important. And also this, what I always tell people is that I want you to develop your network inside your organization and outside your organization. Why outside? Because that is part of your safety net in case you do need to make a change, or you lose your job or whatever. You need other people outside your current organization to help steward that transition. And many people, men and women, make the mistake of only having a network inside their company. And then when they get let go, they're really in trouble.
Agreed. And so we have Natalie Benamou talking about LinkedIn and building your brand on LinkedIn. And I always challenge clients like, hey, spend 10 to 15 minutes a day building that network, because you won't be disappointed.
So important. And then one of the next pillars is strategic action and accountability. As a business owner myself, that accountability piece is so important, because I can set goals all day long and get really excited about them. But if I don't have someone that keeps me accountable toward my goals, it is so easy to kind of backstroke it and go, well, I'll get to it next quarter kind of thing.
Yeah. So this one's a hot button for me. So when we were forming the conference, I actually am in the process of forming something called the Brave Circle. So at the end of this conference, women will have the option to join a coaching accountability group with me monthly, where they get that one-on-one support. They get that accountability support, totally optional. And then we'll have semi-annual planning sessions, and they'll have access to a private podcast called the Brave Circle. So I wanted to give women an option, which you don't see that very often. You get like the list of all the things like I'm so jazzed about, but then 2 months later, ask me or ask other women or anyone, right? Did you, do that? And typically you don't, because you go back into your old habits and patterns.
It is so easy to get so excited. And then before you know it, 6 months has gone by and you've done nothing about that goal. And then you were demoralized and you feel bad about yourself and you kind of give up. And so, yes, that accountability is so important. And then, of course, the last pillar, the crux of everything, leadership development and resources.
Yeah. So in that, we're really giving you women, female speakers from all different walks of life. So they're going to talk about sponsorship and mentorship and setting yourself up for the next stage of your career. We have a speaker talking about, she's a CEO. She's like, hey, this is my perspective from the C-suite. So really the arc of the career, right? And bringing all of those strategy, all those pillars that, often we're put in management, and then we get, we do good, right? Like Dr. Elise, and then we keep growing, but we don't have all of those pieces put together to keep advancing and really understand how we grow our leadership muscles. And I promise you will have that with this conference.
So excited. All right, let's let our listeners and viewers kind of chew on this. And listeners and viewers, as we go on this next break, I want you to be thinking about how this conference can help you personally. Who can you bring along? Who do you want to invite and share this podcast with that you want to come with you, or who you just think needs this? We'll be right back. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. We're on with Jennifer Pestikas, an executive with over 20 years of experience in the financial services industry, and who is now helping to bring to the fore the brand new conference for women called Thrive in 25. We'll be right back.
Dr. Elise Cortez is a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose, an inspirational speaker and author. She helps companies visioneer for greater purpose among stakeholders and develop purpose-inspired leadership and meaning-infused cultures that elevate fulfillment, performance, and commitment within the workforce. To learn more or to invite Elise to speak to your organization, please visit her at elisecortez.com. Let's talk about how to get your employees working on purpose. This is Working on Purpose with Dr. Elise Cortez. To reach our program today or to open a conversation with Elise, send an email to Elise, A-L-I-S-E, at elisecortez.com. Now, back to Working on Purpose.
Thanks for staying with us, and welcome back to Working on Purpose. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. I mentioned in the last break that my last book came out in March of 2023. It's called The Great Revitalization: How Activating Meaning and Purpose Can Radically Enliven Your Business. What I did for you is I created a 3-page assessment that you can find on my website, gusto-now.com. Download it, it's free. And when you go through that assessment, it will help you understand the extent to which your current culture is meeting the discerning needs of today's workforce. If you are just now joining us, my guest is Jennifer Pestikas, who is, in addition to her long career in the financial services industry, also offering career and leadership coaching for women through her personal company, Brave Women at Work. So for this next segment here, Jennifer, what I wanted to do is one, I wanted to have you articulate from your vantage point, who do you think needs to come to this conference? Who's it really for?
So I would say any woman that feels like, hey, there's a lack of that spark. I need to have leadership resources. I want to learn how to take care of my whole person. So that's that first piece. More specifically, anyone that might be in that mid-career segment, they don't have to be a VP, they don't have to be a CEO or anything like that, but they're in that mid-career and they need community. They need accountability, which is so many of us. So we've talked about all of the pieces of the conference. So if you're in mid-career, you're looking for community, you're looking for accountability, you're looking for leadership resources, and you are willing to travel to the Midwest when actually the weather is nice, I think this would be really good for you. And I'd say the last piece is we're really making this female geared. So you're going to have a lot of exposure to networking and female-led companies. So if you too have a female side hustle, like a female-led side hustle, or if you want to get and network with other women that, let's just say, like they're rock stars, like I would say that this is for you.
I love that. I would add too, I want to invite through these lines and others to anybody that feels stuck. Like, I think I should be further along than I am. I want to be further along than I am. I don't know why I'm not being promoted. To your point earlier, I maybe have lost my luster here and want to understand, how I can better activate that again. I think those are all other really compelling reasons for women to attend. And again, as always, right, it's not just you listening. I mean, you're a fantastic you, anybody on the other side of this thing, but whoever you know a handful of people who probably are feeling this way or need some help. And so we're all evangelizing this together as a community of women around the world. So let's do this next, Jennifer. I would love for you to tell a story or two about a woman that you know who has blossomed in large part due to embracing conferences like ours and or investing in her own ongoing development. I'll maybe share one or two myself.
So I'm actually going to use, I was thinking about this, Dr. Elise, and I'm going to share a couple from our speaker set. So the first one is Dr. Renika Briscoe. So Dr. Renika went to a conference. She's in, she was formerly in academia, has many awards in the New Orleans area, another powerhouse. And she went to a conference and she met Sheila Higgs Burkhalter, who's another one of our conference speakers and keynote speakers, and they hit it off. And so I just want to you listen to the ripple effect here. So they meet, and Sheila, or Shigs as she loves to be called, they hit it off, and she says, you know what, you need to think about getting your brand bigger. And this is to Dr. Renika. And she said, hey, can you consider being an author in one of the Brave Women at Work anthology, in the anthology series? And then she then goes on from there, and she takes kind of the learnings and the relationship and the network from that conference. And then she became an author. And now she's kind of dominoing, and now she's a speaker, and she's actually decided to part from academia. And now she's, building an entire business under her name. And so I just want you to know that you never know what's going to happen when you build relationships at these conferences. So that shows the power of community, the power of self-accountability, the power and the magic of being at these types of events.
I will share another one, and we can maybe kind of do a tennis match on this as we share. I remember distinctly, when I was going through my own leadership development program here in Dallas, Take Leadership Texas in 2014. And that was a program that was really designed to help women get to better understand the issues of Texas and how they might be able to give themselves over to help for that. And I remember sitting on the bus. It was like a 2.5 day sort of deal for 3 times a year. And I was sitting on the bus next to Dr. Sharda Joji. And at the time, she was a professor of astronomy at the University of Texas. And we were sitting there on the bus at 8 o'clock in the morning, ready to take off for the day. And she goes, "That's it. I'm just going to do it." And I'm like, "What is it? What are we doing? Are we getting ice cream? Are we robbing a bank?" And she goes, "I am going to put my name into the hat to be the chair of the department. I have 2 young kids. I've been saying I can't do this. I don't have time. And I'm busy, etc. But if I don't put my name in the hat, I won't get the position, and I won't get to shape the department the way that I want to." And of course, she did go for it. And guess what? She did get the job. She's the first woman to head that department. And I had her on my program as well, talking about this, and what she gets to do to shape that department and really make it accessible for other human beings that would otherwise never entertain that field, because of her unique stamp, is so incredible. But she wouldn't have done it if she wasn't at this conference where she got inspired and excited by what other women were doing with their lives and their careers. She would have stayed under the radar. So that's one example that I have.
Oh, that's great. You've got me kind of thinking. My juice is flowing now. So I have one for myself that's not, listed on the website. So this is kind of a sneak peek behind how things have come to be with Brave Women at Work. So I don't even know the year. I think it might have been 2013 or so. I went to this very large Salesforce conference. If people don't know what Salesforce is, I think it might be the world's largest CRM or client relationship management system now in San Francisco. And there were about 140,000 people there. And it was just overwhelming, Dr. Elise. And I was like, okay, what can I take from this? What can I take from this? Because sometimes conferences just are almost overwhelming, right? But I had the opportunity, and I wouldn't have had this opportunity. So it was perfect timing. So Sheryl Sandberg, who was the former COO of Meta, Facebook at the time, was the keynote speaker. And every person got a hard copy, which I thought was so snazzy, a hard copy of her book, Lean In, there, and it had just come out. And how cool for me that I was in the audience as it was just coming out, and she gave this beautiful keynote. And so I got so on fire after that presentation, completely devoured the book from, when I, from San Francisco to Chicago. I proposed a leadership group. So, the first quote unquote lean in circle of our organization, which became the leadership group in my actual corporate organization. And since that time, we've taken half of our organization through that experience. And I would not have actually gotten the gusto to ask or gotten the gusto without being at that conference.
I love that you said gusto.
I know,
right? It's my jam.
I had to weave it in.
I love that. I appreciate that. I'll give you a spiff later. No, I'm kidding. Another example that I'll share. I was working with a healthcare organization on the West Coast for a good long year, and so I was working in part with the chief nursing officer, and she was really ambitious and really wanted to develop her career, and that was an important part of her life. And she was having a hard time getting past that. She wanted to move on to either, the COO or the CEO role. And so we got to work together, and I kept telling her, go to conferences. You'll get exposed to new ideas. You'll meet other people who can help sponsor you, champion you, and give you advice and perspective that will be important. And sure enough, she did. She started going to conferences. And I get this text from her after her first or second one, maybe the first one that I told her to go to, or encourage her to go to. She's like, "Elise, you'll never believe what happened. Because I was in the company of all of these other really, amazing people, going on with their lives, they're men and women. I just got invited to take a private jet onto one of our other hospital sites." And I wrote back, "You're going, right?" And she said, "I'm on the plane." And,
all right.
and it was so great, right? And she's, because she's and ladies and gentlemen, this is really important, especially if you're an introvert like she is. She's an introvert. It's uncomfortable for her to be around a lot of people. It takes a lot of energy for her. So if you are introverted and you think the idea of a conference sounds overwhelming, you're just selective about who you're actually spending a lot of time with. That's all that is. And that's what she did, right? She just found there was a couple people that she could have a meaningful conversation with, ended up socializing with them. And then here she found herself on this plane. And guess what? Spoiler alert, she did become the CEO of this organization.
Wow. And that also is really good because you just said an introvert can be a CEO. So I think there's a misnomer that, oh, you have to be an extrovert, and that's not true.
No, it isn't. Not at all. In fact, here's what I love to champion along that line, Jennifer. I'm sure you can appreciate this and probably align with it is, as an organizational psychologist, if we look at the introversion extroversion spectrum, one extreme, the extroverts, so nobody's safe, they'll talk to anybody. And the other extreme, the extreme introvert, where they really don't want to leave the house. It's very nice in their own mind, etc. Everyone's somewhere along that spectrum. And what we find is that the introverts are exceptional conversationalists. Why? Because they're listening. They're listening to what the other person is saying. They're not waiting to get in a word in for what they want to say. And that makes them really fantastic, memorable human beings that make a really sticky connection. Whereas the extrovert might meet a whole lot of people, and that's great, but it's a little bit more of a spot fire, if you will. So I want to be able to encourage, wherever you are on the spectrum, there's something for you in a conference.
I love it.
Well, when you think about this coming up here, I know we're about here to close, and I'm going to send them to the site when we close, so don't worry about that. But I do know we are offering an early bird discount, which I think finishes December 15th.
That's correct.
And it's a 15% discount, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we want to be sure and evangelize that. So I would just say I would encourage people to consider this as a gift for yourself. I personally invest in something for myself every single year, if not twice a year, to keep myself growing and learning. So even if your employer doesn't cover this for you, think about this for yourself. And if you're if you're a man listening to this and you're connected to a woman, gift her this conference. She will never forget you.
Yes. And I want to just jump in here and say that we're trying to make this accessible for everyone. So we have like multiple payment options. We have the pay in full 2 payments, and then we just opened a 4-payment option too. So please look at this, because I agree with you, Dr. Elise, like invest in your development.
It's so important. I mean, otherwise, you can find yourself in a job for 10 years and the world has passed you by. And that's not the world we live in today. It is moving on without you. If you don't, hitch a ride to that train, and it will leave you behind. And that's not a scare tactic. It's just the way. It's just a statement of what we're living in today. So really want to encourage anyone that's listening, and whoever you're connected to, who do you care about? Obviously, you can see both Jennifer and I are slightly passionate about this conference, and we are committed to it. And it's really something special. So. Let me give you a chance to close, Jennifer. This show is listened to by people around the globe who generally care about elevating their connection to their experience of work, becoming a better leader, finding ways to do business within their own organization that betters the world. What would you like to leave them with?
Well, I just want to thank them for their time today. And I appreciate Dr. Elise being a guest. And what I would say is, the idea of investing in yourself, not only from a time perspective, but also from a monetary, or get your company to pay for it, right? That's also what I say about being a brave woman or a brave man, right? At work is, advocating for yourself. Because at the end of the day, and I want to just underscore this, is that you are responsible. You are ultimately responsible for the trajectory of your career, as we kind of started with. And it is in those decisions and in that advocacy for yourself that you can become a better leader and do great things. And so please take a look at the website. Please really consider it, or gift it, like you said, to someone else.
I want to echo something that you said there about asking for support from your employer. Many people have the belief, this is back to that mindset again, that their company just won't cover it. Let me share something with you. When my 5-year-old daughter said to me when I picked her up from camp many years ago, she said, "Mama, I learned something today." Put a little hands on her hips. She said, "You don't ask, you don't get."
That's right.
And I said, "Oh, sugar, if you just keep that in mind the rest of your life, you'll be just fine." So listeners and viewers, you don't ask, you don't get. So ask. You're going to want to learn more about Jennifer Pestikas, the work she does at Brave Women at Work, and also the Thrive in 25 conference we're both spearheading. So start by visiting her own site, which is bravewomenatwork.com. Again, bravewomenatwork.com for her personal coaching. And then also come visit the conference that we're part of. It's thriveit25.com. The way that's spelled is it's thrive-in, the number 25.com, thrive-in25.com to learn more about this conference. You can also use my promo code, which is, of course, Gusto, all in caps, to access the additional giveaways I'll be awarding to participants. See you next week for another inspiring and educational conversation on working on purpose. And remember, work is one of the best adventures and means of realizing our potential and making the impact we crave. So let's work on purpose.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's program. Be sure to tune into Working on Purpose, featuring your host, Dr. Elise Cortez, each week on W4CY. Together, we'll create a world where business operates conscientiously, leadership inspires impassioned performance, and employees are fulfilled in work that provides the meaning and purpose they crave. See you there. Let's work on purpose.